Hi, it's great to see you again.
Great to see you again, Patrick. I'm very happy to see you this year and to have you here in my studio.
And thank you so much for having me in your studio, in your inner sanctum, where I'm sure all the songs come from here.
Exactly, yeah, I'd say like all the magic happens here and all songs are created here and conceived here, basically.
Well, let's talk about one of those songs and also the video that goes with it, and that
Mhm.
is your new one, Oculto.
Yeah, well, Oculto is my new single that's part of my new EP, and Mis Manus. And it's actually a song that I did inspired in like Colombian culture and Colombian music. I actually wanted to show those sounds that sometimes tend to be like kind of like hidden in Colombia because I feel like sometimes people associate Colombia with just one genre or like one kind of like musical movement. But I thought it was great like to have this opportunity to showcase other sounds that are part of my identity as a Colombian. So I included, for example, sounds from El Chocó, from La Guajira, yeah, like the accordion from La Guajira, percussion from El Chocó, the electronic sounds from the capital city, Bogota, and those sounds mixed with my vocals as well in Spanish. And they say basically, show me your hidden side. So it's basically like this song that talks about like showing what's like deep inside like something else. And in this case, it's Colombia.
So there's more to Colombian music than cumbia.
Exactly. Much more. There's like if you go to Colombia, like you'll see all the sounds change, like even like hours away. Like if you drive an hour, then you'll have new food, new music, new accents, like everything changes. So like it's a very diverse country and I feel like that's very like that's what adds really like value to Colombian people and like to Colombia in general.
Well, I've been of the opinion lately that there is a Colombian invasion, much like the British invasion in the 70s.
Uh-huh.
There's a Colombian invasion led by cumbia, but I'm glad to hear that there's a lot of other different kinds of music.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting us know and
Uh-huh.
educating us a little. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about this one. It's kind of a very precisely crafted dance song,
Uh-huh.
which was something obviously that you're famous
Hmm.
for. It utilizes your voice in several different ways and kind of in several different voices. In
Yeah.
fact, in the middle, you get real close to us and you talk to us in
Uh-huh.
Spanish.
Uh-huh.
And then
Totally.
in other parts of it, it's you looped.
Uh-huh.
Um, are you just sort of playing with your voice? So you know it so well that you can do that?
Yeah, actually, I feel like I decided to use my voice as an instrument in this song and kind of like, yeah, have like that little break where I was kind of like talking to the audience, like really close, like kind of like very intimate, but as well, I had some vocoders going in the back. So it was like actually me playing in the piano, like my own words. So it's like the piano and the synths talking, like repeating the words I'm saying. And then when I'm looping them, it's kind of like looping that same concept of saying like show me your hidden side. And it acts more as a pad, like as a synth pad that's in the back, but in the end it's kind of like my vocal as well, and it has like a lot of like vocals stacked on it. So yeah, like I feel like now I really know how to use my voice in a way that I can shift it and use it as an instrument and part of the instrumentation, and yeah, make it kind of like I don't know, like make it not so on top of the song like the whole time, but actually have the protagonism of each element in the song present so that the voice is actually a complement of everything that's happening in the song as well.
There are parts of that, the way you use your voice and the way you integrate with the music,
Mm-hmm.
that are both ominous
Uh-huh.
and sensual.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right? That was your intention?
Yeah, I actually I wanted to give like that kind of like vibe, like even in the video as well, like to include that kind of like darker side where you don't know like if this is kind of like a good thing, but then it's like yeah, like it had like the sensual part and like kind of like very sexy, so it's like okay, like it had like this kind of duality like inside, and I feel that's great because it also like gives the audience like a lot of like to play with the perception they can add to the song. Like in the end, it's not about what I'm telling them like this is the meaning of the song, but what they perceive as the song and how they appreciate it. So I think like that's the really cool thing about art in general, like to give so many elements that people can play around with those elements and like appreciate each piece of art as they want basically.
You know, that has always been kind of a hallmark of your music, at least to me, as
Uh-huh.
long as I've known you've been listening to your music, is that you keep it spare and open for interpretation.
Yeah, totally. And I think like that's great actually. Like I've always tried to have my music that way. Because that's how I've always appreciated art. Like even since I was little, like with classical music, then like with pop, rock, then like even with painted art, for example, I don't know, the works of Monet, Van Gogh, Picasso, like I love them, and like it's kind of like sometimes you don't know what they painted, like it's not clear, but you appreciate it, and like you kind of like have your own conclusions from that. So I think that's super cool because it's kind of like in the end nobody has the absolute truth, like just the artist will know like what he or she wanted to portray in the song or in the piece of art. But I think it's cool that in the end like the audience can complement the value that this piece of art is giving. So I think that's really cool, like when you can leave a little bit of the concept like a bit open so that people can interpret it the way they want, basically.
Well, one part of the music that, at least to me, isn't open, and that is the drumming, which just grabs you right in the gut.
Yeah.
Is that your drumming?
Yeah, actually, yeah, and even in all my songs, I'm always playing the drums, and I tend to play the drums and then overlay them with drums that I program in the computer. So it's basically kind of like, for example, for a sound of a snare, I have like 5 snare sounds. That's like just one sound, but in the end, it's kind of like this overlapping of sounds that makes something else. So yeah, but like in all my songs, I'm always playing the drums and like playing the percussion because I like to feel kind of like driven. Like when I'm composing the music and like making it, I like to play around like with like improvisation and kind of like letting myself go with the vibe of what I'm feeling. So even for example, like with guitars that I've played in my songs, like usually they're like solos that I'm improvising, and then it's like, oh, like this sounds cool. Like now I'm gonna record it like for real. But I feel like it's cool because it's kind of like my soul is talking, and then like I will just follow like what my soul and my heart are saying and make my brain learn what they're saying and then like just play that.
Let's talk about the video for a minute. It's very sensual. It's an Alley Stone that I have not seen before.
Yeah.
Sensual, sexy, a lot more than Obsessions.
Yeah.
In Mis Manus.
Uh,
It's high style, but it's totally you're totally sexually out there, and you're also in control too.
yeah.
So is this the new Alley Stone, or has it kind of always been there under the spacesuit all along?
Oh, well, I feel like it's kind of it has always been there, basically, I would say, but I do feel like this is kind of like the new Alice Stone era, basically, where like this kind of like power woman is coming like already out like in full like performance, I would say. So yeah, like kind of like fully embracing like my inner power and kind of like bringing that girl power like into everything. So like not only in my music but also like in my music videos and kind of like in my image, like even changing my hair. So it's kind of like now everything's kind of like transforming, and it's kind of like a metamorphosis into this like persona, this girl power that I've always had inside me.
Okay. You're not going to go all DJ Susie DeSantos on
No,
us,
no,
are
no.
you? We're not going to see any bikini.
No,
Okay.
nah, never, no. No,
Okay.
I'm always gonna have also like my kind of like my clothing that's like very reminiscent of like superheroes. Because I remember I told you that I love superheroes and everything, and that's why I also use like a lot of like metallic clothing, kind of like an armor. Because I want to show that strength. Like it's not about like, yeah, like what you were saying, like going like in bikini or anything. It's not about like trying to tease people like into making them believe that I'm worthy of being talented because of what I'm wearing, but actually it's just like complementing like my vision. So I feel like if I have like this vision of girl power, like I have to wear like this kind of like powerful suits, and also like very colorful as well, or like yeah, kind of like playing with black and like purple. That's one of my favorite colors.
I sort of
Blue.
noticed, yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of like always bringing that, and always like with the stones, like I think like you will notice that I'm always having like stones, yeah, because I love stones, and they're part of my name as well, so it's kind of like yeah, part
Okay.
of like my whole thing.
All right. So you're not powerful because what you're wearing or not wearing.
Uh-huh.
You're powerful because who you are and what you do.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
Okay. Speaking of what you do, though, you're credited with the music and the video,
Uh-huh.
but you work with Craig Baskett of Raw Forest
Uh-huh.
Media. How did you guys come together on that?
Well, actually, we met last year. We met during the New York Fashion Week, and I remember. Well, I went to this show, and then like I ended up showing him my music, and he was like, "This is amazing. Like we should get to work onto something together. Like let me know when you have like something that you feel like we should work on." And then when Oculto happened, it was like, okay, like maybe I feel this is the song where we could like join forces and kind of like play around with his creative mind and make something that looks a little bit more like a fashion film kind of like video, but in the end is like about the message of Oculto, because I thought that it was like, since it was such a minimal song, like minimalistic song, it gave like a lot of space to play around with the audiovisual stuff and like to leave it like very like open into interpretation, as I was saying. So that's how I ended up working with Craig, and yeah, with a team of an amazing crew, and like the models and even like all the designers that were part of the video. Like it was an amazing project, because we were able like to include that kind of like including occulto or hidden like gems into the fashion spectrum, and then like joining that with the whole structure of the song basically.
Speaking of the models,
Uh,
I guess they're also dancers too.
yeah,
Yeah, that was Yoa Mizuna and Vincent Turri.
yeah.
How did you find them, or did he find them?
Well, actually, Craig was the one that found them. He already knew them from past work, so he decided to bring them because they had also like the perfect kind of like aesthetic for what Craig had envisioned. And yeah, they had like these amazing movements, and we actually worked with a choreographer during the video shoot so that he would actually instruct us on how we should move, because like the takes were very precise, that the takes that the videographer did, Neftali, were like very, yeah, like very on point. So like it was like, for example, in this scene you're going to move this way and Neftali is going to go like from your head to your toes, so you have to move this way because like that's how it's going to be done.
So you were choreographed.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So so it was great to have like all this team like helping, and they were all like so loving and humble and like so easy to work with. So it made the experience like super fun, and we shot it in New York in last year in New York.
Okay. Does a culto represent or signal a different direction for you?
I would say, well, like maybe like it signals like a different direction for the EP that I just released, which people will notice has like a little bit of a darker side. And but it also signals like this kind of like portraying of my Colombian identity, because I've always felt super proud that I feel like this is a moment to show people like these are also Colombian sounds. And now that, yeah, like everybody's kind of like putting their eyes into Colombia, like I feel it's important to show them like this is also happening in Colombia, and this is part of like what Colombians are. So I feel like this is maybe kind of like that new door that Oculto is showing to people. But in the end, it's part of my color palette of who I am, and like the sounds I already have in my head and how I get to play with them around.
Um, Given your strong affinity for your Colombian heritage,
Uh-huh.
why are you in Los Angeles?
Well, I actually moved to LA because of my work as a producer and songwriter. Because in that I do feel that in Colombia like there's still like a lot of work to be done. In regards of, for example, being able to collaborate in different projects, to co-write songs, to produce songs for other people, and also like there's this like Colombia is still like very sexist, unfortunately. And I remember like when I was in Colombia, like there were a lot of people like telling me like I shouldn't be producing or like mixing, mastering. Like nobody wanted to see a woman that did everything, and that was kind of like intimidating. And that to me was like so weird, because like it was like I would say like around like four people told me that, and even like right now, well, like 2 months ago, I was in Colombia, and I remember like some magazine asked me if I could prove that I was an actual producer, like if it was real what I did. So it's like, oh my God, like they're still kind of like having this sexist mentality. And yeah, I felt that I had like to kind of like go away from that, like to really get my full potential and kind of like get my full opportunity to express my talent. And I like when I got to LA, I did feel like it was the place to be, because here like people told me like, this is amazing that you do everything, like you shouldn't be kind of like ashamed of that, but actually proud of that. And this is kind of like a thing that adds value to your talent as an artist, as a producer, singer songwriter. So I felt that this was the place to really kind of like exploit my different skills, and yeah, make like the most out of them basically.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
This
thank
this
you.
being my hometown.
Oh,
All right.
amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And I know a number of Colombian men here in Los Angeles in the music industry, and I don't think they would ever ask, why is a woman producing?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
they would ask, let me see what you've done.
Uh-huh,
Okay?
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's kind of like a cultural thing, like because like the Colombian people I've met here in LA, like they're all super open-minded and like very kind of like the LA way of thinking, which I think is it's amazing. And I feel like it's yeah, kind of like a work of everybody that's from Colombia, like, and yeah, like not only Colombia but like different Latin American countries that are still like very sexist, like to kind of like open the space for more women, so that those kind of like stigmas around like what women should be doing and should not be doing are kind of like destroyed, because I feel like that's like what's happening, like maybe they don't, like they're not used to seeing women do that, so it's like that's why they react this way. But I feel like in the end, if you kind of like open these spaces with talent and with a lot of hard work, discipline, then more women will come into this, and then this will shift people's mind and they will realize like, oh, we were wrong. You're actually like you can actually do that.
Yeah, it's creeping up. I think the last statistics I saw were 16% of producers are female.
Yeah, it's actually 2% of producers are female,
Yeah.
and 16% are songwriters, and I think 6% are engineers. But yeah, it's like super small. Like producers is like the least amount of female producers. And yeah, it's a study that USC released a couple of months ago. So yeah, this is crazy, and that's why a lot of like women have begun like to work. For example, Alicia Keys with the She's the Music song camps, and the Recording Academy with the Women in the Mix initiative as well. Because I think it's important like to really give like the space for women. Like if this is happening, it's not only because like there's like less women participating in this, but also because like that space for these women to have like that kind of like protagonism isn't happening. So there should be like spaces that are open like for women to be able to participate and to showcase their talent.
Well, speaking of space open for women, you were at one, a songwriting camp
Uh-huh.
in Nashville.
Yeah.
All right, what was that like?
Oh, it was an amazing experience. It was actually a song camp for the She's the Music organization that Alicia Keys leads. And it was an amazing experience because I got to work with so many amazing songwriters. We were all female, songwriters, producers working there. And it was a camp for a week in Nashville, making R&B, hip hop, and country music. So it was like really cool to also shift between like each genre basically, and kind of like shift also according to like the direction of the song, the direction of the sound. And it was also like really nice to get to explore a little bit of Nashville because it was my first time in the city. So I loved being there. It's like a very musical city, so it was super cool. I wish I could come there like eventually soon.
Did you write any country songs?
Yeah, I wrote a country song for the Sisterhood Band. They're this amazing country band from Nashville, composed by Ruby Stewart, who is the daughter of Rod Stewart, and Alisa Bonagura, who is the daughter of Bailey and the Boys. And we did an amazing country song, and it was super fun because I remember like they told me like it's weird to see like a Colombian doing like country music. But it was like, yeah, like I feel like this is kind of like the thing that makes it more fun because it's not the usual thing that you would expect a Colombian to do. But since I studied like blues and like jazz when I was little in guitar, it was like kind of like what gave me the elements to bring those like bases into the country music making. And it was like a really cool experience, like to kind of like being jamming with the guitar and then finding like, okay, like maybe this riff is going to work with this song, and then writing like everything like according to like what the sisterhood band wanted to tell in the song. And yeah, and I wrote on that with Priscilla Renee as well, who's an amazing songwriter, and yeah, with Alisa and with Ruby. So it was like a really cool experience.
Are we going to get to hear that country song?
Yeah, actually, well,
Cool.
it's for their new album, for the Sisterhood band's new album.
Yay.
So yeah, eventually, like when they release the album, you'll be able to hear that
Okay.
song.
I'm looking forward to the video
Yeah,
with you in your boots and
that would be amazing. Yeah,
doing a two-step, right?
yeah, exactly. Dancing how it is.
Um, you also you work with a number of organizations that try to make more space for women. You women working for
Uh-huh.
women. What exactly do you do
Yeah,
with
well,
them?
in Women Working for Women, for example, it's an organization that began in Mexico, and it began with a campaign of having like different women talk about what is like the power of being a woman, and I said that it is like the power to fight against like the stereotypes that society imposes into us. And it began this way, and then it extended into having, for example, conversatories, different speeches, or different, for example, panels, not only like in Mexico but also like in Colombia. For example, last year I was speaking at this panel that was in conjunction with Women in Business. So it's also like about like sharing the story, kind of like being this example, this role model for other women that want to come into the industry. Well, I'm representing the women like in music and DJing, because there's also like, for example, a woman that's a pilot, a woman that's a tattoo artist, another one that's a skater. So like there were like women for each role, but it's been like super cool to be kind of like a spokesperson, representing women, in this case. And yeah, to see that everything is kind of like extending into bigger things and bigger projects. And that's why I'm also going to New York in this July, because there's also happening a panel around like women empowerment and like women in the industry, and kind of like the equity of genders, the gender equality. So it's important like to kind of like have this advocacy of being able to keep telling the story about women, because I feel like the most important way to keep opening the spaces is to share the stories and to make other people aware of what's happening. And then again, yeah, like inviting more women to come into this.
Well, I expect to see you at She Rocks one of these days.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to.
All right. Well, speaking of what I expect you to do, because we're about out of time here, um, where are you going? Is Oculto just another facet of who you are, or is that a new direction?
I would say like Oculto is just like another part of who I am, because I don't like to kind of like stay in the same lane like with each release. Like, and as you may have noticed, like I like to really change my songs. Like every time that I release something, it's kind of like expect the unexpected, because I like to shift everything kind of like, yeah, from one way to another. And I feel like that's what makes it like more fun, like to be dynamic and not, it's always kind of like having your essence, but being able to play like with the different sounds that surround your essence, so that you can be able to, I don't know, have a song that sounds more trap, then a song that sounds more techno, another one that sounds like even more Middle Eastern, but in the end it's a song that sounds like me. So I like to play around with that a lot. And yeah, I feel it's kind of like part of the artistry, like the value of the artistry, like to be able to shift around, but in the end, yeah, keeping those elements that will make you think like, oh, this is by Ali Stone. And it's elements, for example, like the vocal stacking or like playing with vocoders. Like I have those elements in all of my songs, the guitars, the percussion, the importance of percussion and drums. So it's kind of like little motives, kind of like literary motives, but in music, that make you think like, oh, this goes back again to Ali Stone. So that's my purpose, I feel like, with music, and that's my ultimate dream, like to give people so many things, but in the end they will know like this is Alice Stone, the one that's making it.
Well, as of now, I think you've been successful. Anytime I hear
Thank you.
the first few notes of a song, I can say, that's Ali Stone.
Thank
Right?
you. I'm glad.